Yeah, this was a turning point for me because I realized that things had to change. If I was unhappy with the way the curriculum at the
Right.
University of Hawaii College of Education was to be changed, it's got to come from the top.
Right.
So, as a member of the Committee on Education, I asked for a meeting with the dean of the College of Education,
Okay.
Dean Everly,
And is that University of Hawaii?
at the University of Hawaii,
Okay.
and they all came down, and I explained to them my concern that their curriculum had a focus on what to teach. On how to teach. I'm sorry, on how to teach, not what to teach, and that as a teacher going into this arena of providing education for young people, it's not only the fact that I can teach them, I've got to know what to teach them.
Right.
So I think it's time that you people recognize that there needs to be a change in the curriculum, the focus of your curriculum. And so Dean Everly raised his eyebrows and he said, we will take a good look at it. I think you've got a point. I think we've been taking things for granted, and we'll see what we can do. And they did change. They did change. So I felt much better that at least the students following me are going to have the opportunity to have some knowledge of the information that they should have to impart to the students that they're going to teach. But this has got to do, I guess, with the fact that you have an incident occur to you, and you may have to wait 5 years, sometimes even 10 years.
Just to
Wait
solve that
for
problem.
the opportunity to come when you can change it.
Okay.
Okay, and
So there's a philosophy behind that?
yes, this is something that I guess I sort of reminded myself all the time. When I was a school teacher at the Kaimiki Intermediate School, now Kaimiki Middle School, Kaimiki Intermediate School, teachers were considered staff, not professionals.
Okay.
They were considered staff. We had no unions.
Ooh.
The HSTA and the AFT were not in Hawaii at the time.
Okay.
Okay, so we were at the disposal of the principal of the school. So as staffers, then we were assigned to monitor the recesses, go out there and watch the youngsters, make sure that they don't hurt each other. We had no planning period of our own. We had no teacher's room where we could at least make a phone call or maintain our own business. We were not treated as professionals. And I felt that there's something lacking here, that teachers were not given the kind of respect that they should have after all the schooling that they've had and the responsibility that they have.
It's huge
They should
responsibility.
be treated like faculty. Until a phone call came in one day telling me that my young child, the youngest child, was taken to the hospital because she was hurt. And so
What happened?
I hurried down to the office and I said, I'd like to call the school and find out what hospital she was taken to and what the condition was. And the staff at the office told me, we're so sorry, but administrative rules prohibit us from letting you people use our telephones for personal phone calls.
What do you mean, you people? The
For
parents?
personal phone calls. So if you want to call to find out, there's a public telephone up there on 18th Avenue.
Whose neck did you wring? Did you wring anybody's neck right there?
No.
Okay.
What could I do? But I chalked it up
Okay.
in my so-called book, and I thought, the day is going to come, my dears, when this is going to change.
Yes.
And it did, because the following year, I organized the very first state teachers union.
Nice.
Yeah, but it really wasn't a union. It was a group of people under the under the Charlie Kendall was his name.
Mm-hmm.
He was oh come on, HGA, Hawaii
Okay.
Government Employees Association.
Right. So it's the beginning of this
Yes.
whole union.
So I made a phone call, a very
Uh-huh.
important phone call. I picked the phone call, Charlie Kendall at HGA, and I said, teachers are government employees too.
Yes.
And you people don't have a teachers chapter within your organization.
Mm-hmm.
We teachers need representation
Yes.
in the legislature. We need representation to fight for our rights, because at least we should be respected as professionals.
Absolutely.
Charlie Kendall says, "You're right, absolutely right." And so I said, "Well, let's draft a charter." So he came up to my house, and we sat on my patio, and we drafted the first chapter, called the Teachers Chapter of the HGA, and I wouldn't sign it unless, number one, I had the full endorsement of the whole HGA employees organization.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, that they would support me in my presentations at the legislature, because I would want to make presentations
Sure.
for our rights and so forth. And number three, that we would have not only their support, but their cooperation in any other concerns that we may have. So he said, absolutely, no
It's very
question about it.
strategic. Very good. Yeah.
So I went out there and organized thousands of teachers willingly joining the teachers chapter of the HGA, and so you can call it the first teachers union if you want, but it was an organization that was sorely needed at the time.
Sure.
Now, when HSTA then and the HEA and the AFT came into town, and they were organized as unions, and they had representation in Washington, D.C., then I went to the HGA and I said, let's disassemble this whole thing. Let's drop the teachers chapter, because I'll let the teachers join whichever union that they want.
So they chose another union.
Yeah.
And started
So
their
I
own.
told the teachers they can join either the HEA or the AFT, because they have representation in Washington and they're organized as unions.
Very
Whereas
nice.
our chapter is just a chapter of a local organization.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it took me years before I could complete that whole cycle.
It's just constant struggle, constant pushing through,
That's right.
constant and thinking about it and having the
That's
right.
But what I
frame of mind
tell
for
my
it.
young people when I talk to them is this: when you see something that is unfair or unjust,
Yes.
just don't laugh it off or turn away from it or forget it. Chalk it up, remember it, and when you have the opportunity to change it, change it. That's been my motto for all of my career.
Right. Now, there's bigger things that you've also been pivotal in changing here in Hawaii.
Yes.
One of the things is the bombing of Kaho'olawe, which a lot of people my age and older clearly remember, and I think the younger generations sometimes don't even know about.
Yes.
But you were pivotal in having the U.S. Navy cease
That's right.
all bombing really, really quickly.
And the irony of it is, it could have been done so much sooner.
But it's almost
than
like
it
they
was.
didn't. Did people not want to go the extra mile to do it or to stop it?
I don't have the evidence to prove this, but I do know for sure that the bombing of Kahoolawe was sanctioned by the President of the United States,
Yes.
Franklin Delano Roosevelt, by presidential order,
Right.
executive order. An executive order can be overturned by another president.
Mm-hmm.
So you see, all of this fuss about Kaho'olawe was going on and on and on, but who was president of the United States? A Republican. So the Democrats never went to the Republican president to try to overturn it.
Wow. So they didn't really try.
Well, I don't know. See, I can't prove it because I have no evidence that they knew or that they even tried. All I know is at the time that this whole thing occurred, the reason why it occurred at all was because Senator Matsunaga, United States Senator Matsunaga, died in April. Whenever you have an empty seat, you've got to find people who can fill it.
Right.
And you want to fill it with somebody. You want to put up candidates that can win.
Right.
So the Republicans came to me. I was a member of the House then, House of Representatives. And they came to me and they asked me to run for the Senate, for the United States Senate in Matsunaga's seat. In the meantime, the Democrats then went ahead and appointed Dan Akaka to fill the vacancy as soon as Matsunaga died, so that there'll be an incumbent. See?
Yep.
So then I mulled it over, wondering whether I should just really do it, because after all, I had won election to the House of Representatives on 2 occasions already. My third time would not have been so difficult. I think I could have won again.
Right.
It was my husband who said, "Why are you running for office at all? You always said, and you still think, that you're running for office so that you can do a good job, so you can do something to help the people, not so that you can enhance yourself or that you can hold a position and enjoy the power that comes with it.
Because that's not what the position's for.
That's not why you run. Run. That's not why you ran. And I think you know it." I said, that's right. That's absolutely right. So he says, "So why not run for the United States Senate? You win, you win. You lose, you lose. You haven't lost anything, really, because you never thought that you had to run for your own purpose." So I said, I think you're right. Why don't we take a chance and do it? So we sat on it for a while until the phone call came in from President George H.W. Bush. He says, "I'd like to talk to you." I said, "Uh-oh." I said, "Yes, Mr. President. What would you like to do?" He says, "I'd like you to come to the Oval Office."
Wow.
So I said, "Could you send a car to pick me up? Because, I don't want to go through all the security." He says, "We will send somebody up to pick you up," which they did.
Very cool.
So I can get right through the security, go to the Oval Office, and he asked me then to run for the United States Senate. So I said, "Yes, I have been thinking about it. My husband is urging me to do it." He says, "Well, I want you to do it, and I'll do whatever I can to help you. Is there anything really that I can do?" I said, "Yes, there is." "What?" he says. "You can stop the bombing of Kaho'olawe." He says, "Kaho'o what?" He turned around to Sununu, who was his administrative aide at the time. He says, "Get her to spell it for you."
Okay.
So I did. And he says, "Well, what makes you think I can do it?" I said, "Because it was ordered by presidential executive order by Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And according to my research, one president can create an order, another president can overturn that order. So, Mr. President, I'm saying that you can stop the bombing of Kaho'olawe, and let me tell you what the damage it is doing to that little island." And I gave him all the details of the Hawaiians and their religion and the way they observe that island as sacred. And besides that, Mr. President, the bombs are falling so close to the island of Maui, which is right next door, and it's affecting your golf course. He says, "What golf course?" I said, "The golf course that you enjoy playing on." And he said, "Oh my God." He turned around and said to Cheney, "See to it that this is done right away."
Wow.
And I tell you something, they did their research after that. He turned around and he said, "Well, where are we going to bomb then?
Find somewhere else."
I said, "Mr. President, that's your problem."
Yeah.
He laughed.
Good on you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Well,
Thank you so much.
It took about 3 months or 4 months.
As one native Hawaiian, thank you.
And he did it. He did it. He really did it. And interestingly, the press gave him credit for it to some extent. Gave me credit too for it. subtly. You know, it was not blown up all over the place because I'm a
But you weren't doing it for
Republican.
the credit. You're doing it because it's
No.
right.
And besides that, I'm a Republican, see,
Right.
and it's a Republican president, and you know how the press is. So
Mm-hmm.
they just don't feel that important, but that's okay.
It was important to the Native Hawaiian community.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So that was one occasion that I'm very proud of. That besides the other factors that I participated in, which I am also proud of, is the changing of the internment of the Japanese Americans when they were interned.
Right, during World War II.
Yeah, during World War II, and the Civil Liberties Act was passed in 1988, and it was that act was pending in the Congress for 10 years, and when I got elected, I asked, what happened? What is it that it didn't pass? They said, well, unfortunately, it's the Republicans that are holding it up.
Mm-hmm.
So I immediately called my Republican leader and I said, I'd like to have a meeting with the caucus. And it's a very important subject. He said, okay. So they called a caucus of all the Republicans in the House.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I told them, fasten your seatbelts, guys, because I'm going to take you on a guilt trip.
Good.
A guilt trip that you're not going to forget. Because I understand that it is you, Republicans, us Republicans, that are holding up this bill from passage. The Democrats all support it. Republicans are holding it up. And I want to know why. But I'll tell you why you should pass it.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave them all the horror stories about how people were dragged off without due course.
Right. Just taken away from their homes and their
legal standing,
businesses.
nothing. They were dragged off. And I said, and they were sent to, they called them internment camps. I call them concentration camps because they had people on towers with rifles
Mm-hmm.
aimed at anyone who dared to escape. And I said, I happen to have an uncle and cousins who were taken to Topaz, Utah. Till today, my cousin is known as Topaz because that's where he had to grow up. So the Civil Liberties Act finally passed in 1988 with Republican support. Finally, half the caucus that objected voted
Good.
in support of it, changed the direction of that whole episode. And the matter passed with an apology
Right.
by the president. The interesting thing is the staff, the White House staff, said, when time to sign the bill, Pat, the president wants you to stand right next to him
Beautiful.
because you were the key thing that switched the direction of that legislation. So every picture that you see now of that Civil Liberties Act that passed in 1988,
You're right
I'm
there.
standing right next to him. Standing right next to him.